Good morning, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff_2020. And this morning we're looking at pelicans, a flock of pelicans, about 100 yards offshore. Zoomed in the best I can with the little iPhone camera. Got a little 2x telephoto lens that I got, and you're looking through that, so that's plus the digital zoom is bringing that scene to us this morning. I just love pelicans, and I bet you do too. There's a great many birds this morning. There's a huge flock of seagulls out there, and I just saw a couple of dolphins rising out of the water just a little bit to our right, but they're nowhere to be seen right now. If I get a chance to show you some dolphins, though, I sure will. It's the Atlantic Ocean, and man, is it huge. It's a very huge ocean. I guess those guys have already had their lunch. They're not doing anything, just sitting there. A couple of cormorants coming along from the right. Don't know if you'll see them or not. There goes one right above the pelicans. Oh, I just saw, I guess that was a pelican diving down to get a fish. I'm scanning the horizon for some dolphin fins and don't see any. So good morning. Good morning from Mystery Beach, North Carolina. Wow. I hardly even want to talk about politics because it's just such a breath, literally a breath of fresh air. The sky's been blue. We haven't seen any commercial airliners since Sunday. And just those couple of military jets yesterday is the only thing's been up there besides a whole lot of seagulls. There, oh, look at this. Oh, I'm sorry, hang on. I don't know if you can see, a pelican just flew right in front of us. Such magnificent birds, and I think they've been on this earth longer than humans have. That's just one of the thoughts you get when you're here at the beach, and you realize how small we are. I'm just this little tiny guy. One guy among 7 billion guys on a very huge planet. Really, really humbling. But I certainly do like those pelicans. So I hope you enjoy. Let me see if I can get them a little more of a close-up. That's just the digital zoom. Maybe I can turn it a little bit and let you see some more of the ocean without messing it up. That's just a whole lot of seagulls out there. There must be some good fishing going on. Actually, you know what? I think you'd probably like to see the whole beach. Oops, sorry. So sorry. Hang on. There we go. Now, this is looking north, and we just follow her all the way around. There's one family and one couple here. But we have the whole place to ourselves. That's a U.S. Army Research Center pier down there with some kind of facility on the end of the pier. Hydraulics or something like that. Anyway, that's what they say. Try to keep the little family out of the picture. Whoa, that puts the sun behind me. Sorry about that. I'll come back around here. All right. The Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean was the ocean to the west of Europe. And if you were in Europe and you wanted to go somewhere else, you could either go east, or you could go south, or you could go north. But you couldn't go west because that's where this great big amazing ocean was that, as far as they knew, was endless until we learned otherwise. And so then they had the new option of going west, and that's where a lot of them did. And they came over here and they established their culture from over there, and they planted it here in many different varieties, but a European culture planted here in what they called the New World. And most of them did want to have a New World order at the time. They were quite sick and tired of the one they had left. So along went time, and the Native Americans are pushed out of the way, or sometimes assimilated, but generally disregarded as humans and treated like animals. Well, across the continent we went, not because of what something called manifest destiny or any of that stuff. No, it was just mainly the railroads that learned how to make all that money by being the fastest way to get across the country. Transportation being the key to the investments of the 19th century, the 1800s, you know, from Carnegie and Rockefeller and the railroad barons. Well, that was because they knew that they could make a lot of money providing transportation, just like the British Empire does by ruling the waves. Britannia rules the waves. So our history is a consistent attempt by British and other Europeans, but mainly in Northern America, British, to extend their system to the West. Now, those of us that consider ourselves Americans, and I mean Native American not as a pre-contact racial concept, but as a native who was born in America, United States of America, I consider myself to have been born in a country that is free of the ties of those old European powers across the ocean, across the Atlantic Ocean. And so we had a tradition of looking west, and go west, young man, and that was incredibly fueled by the gold rush of 1848, the expansion of American territory onto the Pacific coast, and now, with the ability to cross the continent with the great railroads, the next stop was Asia. And of course, Hawaii, just an imperial takeover by United States, commercial interests, U.S. Marines, standing by to help the U.S. commercial interests take over from the resident queen of Hawaii. And we do the same thing in lots of places in the Pacific, including the Philippines, of course. And that's what puts General MacArthur out there, because he's one of those, like me, in a sense, that we think of ourselves as Americans and not as extensions of a British empire. And this is the difference between a MacArthur, who is an imperialist, but he's an American imperialist, okay? And an Alan Dulles, who is an imperialist, but a pro-British imperialist. And all of the powers that have been controlling the CIA have been looking back to the East, looking back to Europe, looking back to the needs of what they considered still to be superiors residing in Europe, and especially in the city of London, where the banking lords are. So this is the real fight that's going on in our election and in our country. Are we American imperialists, or are we British imperialists? And I think you see the idea of a Trump identifying with American sovereignty and nationalism as tending toward the American side. Now, is there a good imperialism? Well, our historians say there is. And none less than Gordon S. Wood, because he called his great book about the first quarter century of this country Empire of Liberty. Empire of Liberty. Now, is that an oxymoron? I don't think so. But the trouble with using the word empire is it implies the need to always conquer. You need to always take somebody else's land in order to, or people, or assets, or resources, or minerals, or fresh air, or fresh water, or just get rid of them. That kind of imperialism is what people think of in the terms of an empire. So that 19th century idea of an empire of liberty was very, very prominent. You can see that in the images from the Chicago World Exhibition of 1893 that I showed you in one of my previous Mindfields, where you see a Statue of Liberty, not a female goddess with the diadem of stars and the big flame in her hand, no, but a figure that is holding both hands up, and in one hand is that imperial eagle with the globe, in its talons, but in the other hand is the liberty pole with the liberty cap. And, in a way, the red MAGA hats are perhaps a descendant of the red liberty caps that were worn by our patriots. Because it's only with personal liberty that we can have freedom. And if an empire must enslave its people, then that's not an American empire, because an American empire must be based upon liberty. So that's not my phrase, that's Gordon S. Wood's phrase, and you can argue with him if you want. But the idea of America always included liberty. Why else do we say with liberty and justice for all? Now, this lockdown is coming back. I just got notified they're going to increase our lockdown in my state, Maryland. And I know it's happening all over the place. And there's reports of a lot more illnesses, and it seems to be the more severe kind. It attacks the lungs. I'm not a doctor. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just telling you what I hear. So it seems like it's one of those things that's just impossible to believe that they want us to believe, and most people are believing it because they are still wedded to the mainstream media. So most people think that we are now undergoing the dreaded second wave of the COVID-19. And that's what the media is telling us, and that's what people like Governor Hogan are telling us. And this is now going to drive a further lockdown. And so there you go. Could they have created, if they wanted to, a better scenario to deprive us of our rights? That's a question I would like everyone to think about, especially if you're on the left, especially if you are a Joe Biden fan, because I know that people on the left, Democrats, love liberty too. And are you not in danger of falling into Benjamin Franklin's trap of giving up liberty in exchange for security? Because this is the age of bioweapons. They do exist. And they have spent decades and billions of dollars making them more virulent. So it's a possibility that even if this one was natural, that the next one could be an attack upon our health from a military-developed bioweapon. That's not going to be a matter of political parties. That's going to be a disaster of untold proportions. But that would be if it's a military weapon. If it's a natural virus, it will pass. They all do. They always have. But I must ask everybody to consider the idea that it might not be a natural virus. And maybe the mainstream media is conspiring against us, we the people, to take away our liberty. Man, I see these birds flying and I think, wow, that's liberty, you know? Yeah. Nina Simone's great song, I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. She talks about fly like a bird and look down in the world, and then I'd know how it feels to be free. Show you guys some more beach here. thanks so much for being with us today here at Mystery Island Beach, North Carolina, and looking forward to sharing some more with you tomorrow with the great Harley Schlanger of LaRouche Pack, and he has sent me a copy of a recent broadcast he did tying, guess who, McDuff, into our current situation. And he asked the question, who do you think Banquo is? So we'll find the answer tomorrow at 11 a.m. right here, Eastern Standard Time, from Mystery Island, North Carolina. No reading tonight, but I will be back Thursday night with the trio, Professor Hamamoto and the incredible George Webb.